I'm Rebecca, and thanks for joining me today to look at how to use Oncrawl dashboards to identify and prioritize issues with Core Web Vitals. So basically what we just want to go over in this video is what are the Core Web Vitals, how to get Core Web Vital metrics in Oncrawl, and a little bit about how to read our dashboards. So, as you're aware, the Core Web Vitals have become important metrics to track for SEO. Essentially, they're at the heart of some of the important algorithm updates in the summer of 2021, as they've become part of the ranking algorithms focusing on page experience for search. Just for some context, and a little bit of a reminder, they are currently 3 metrics defined by the web.dev initiative led by Google, and they are used to quantitatively measure user experience on a web page. First, we have the largest contentful paint, which gives you a sense of load time by measuring how long it takes the biggest element to load, the first input delay, which is the time before user interaction like scrolling or clicking is recorded by the browser, and the cumulative layout shift, which measures how much things move around as the page loads. These are what we call field metrics, or field data, which means they've been collected in the field, that is, from real behavior of consenting Chrome users, aggregated across about a month of data. However, in Oncrawl, when you want to look at your site's pages and how they perform or will perform on Core Web Vital metrics, you want an instantaneous result for any web page, including those that aren't visited yet, or aren't even known to Google. So for this, we use lab data. This is data measured at the moment when we run the test, rather than collected from real users. Essentially, this just means that we replace the first input delay with total blocking time, which estimates the time until the browser is available to process that type of interaction. This substitution is both approved and recommended by Google. To see how your site performs on Core Web Vitals, you'll need to have run a JavaScript crawl with Core Web Vitals included. You can set this up in the crawl settings by checking these 2 boxes. At this point, you'll have access to the Core Web Vitals dashboard in your crawl report. So we're going to go over how to use this dashboard under Performance, Core Web Vitals, to examine your site and prioritize work on web performance issues. Here you have a site-wide overview of all 3 Core Web Vitals. This should look fairly familiar if you've ever run a Lighthouse or a page speed experience audit. It looks like on this site that there's room for improvement with the largest contentful paint, and some work that could be done on total blocking time. But the content layout shift is looking pretty good here. So based on this, let's look a little bit deeper into what's going on with the total blocking time. To do that, I'm going to scroll down to where I can see this split per page group and look at the total blocking time. I think I'm going to change to a segmentation that's a little bit more structurally relevant for this site, which should give us a bit more information. So before we begin, a quick word about these groups. Anything in the other group is not something I really want to concentrate on. These are by default pages that I did not group in any of my other page groups in this segmentation. So I know that they weren't priority pages for me when I was looking at the site. I'm not going to want to concentrate on that unless they're really extremely bad. Likewise, enterprise and legal here are pages that I want to make sure can be crawled and indexed, but I'm not really interested in ranking for them at the moment. These are things like about me, contact, terms of services. So I'll probably want to concentrate instead on resources and articles. So with that in mind, we can head back up the page. So the idea here, when we look at opportunities, these 2 graphs here, is to find the areas where we can make the most impactful improvements based on some of the suggested optimizations and their associated savings as reported by Lighthouse. So just a reminder that these aren't always practical or even globally advisable optimizations. But by looking at the estimated savings, you can get a good quantitative measure of how much you can potentially improve. If I look at the possible savings in the resources and articles groups, it's pretty clear that I'll probably want to focus on the articles. So here we're looking at the total savings in bytes. We can also switch the tab and see it in milliseconds, since this is going to be more important for total blocking time. And again, the articles provides a much more significant improvement. If I focus only on the articles by switching the base filter, I can see a reminder of the total savings that are possible. So about 1.8 million in bytes and 770 milliseconds in milliseconds for about 1,000 pages. In deciding whether or not I want to go ahead with any optimizations, this can be a huge deciding factor. I might not have the ability to cover 1,000 pages individually, but fortunately for this site, I know that the articles use a template and that I can probably make changes on that level that will affect all of these pages at once. So that'll probably be a good place to start. But that's an idealized view of the Core Web Vitals on this site. It's a good idea to measure the actual impact on organic traffic and search engine bot behavior. So this will help you prove or disprove SEO hypotheses regarding what has an impact on your SEO. If you have log analysis or an analytics account connected to Oncrawl, we will merge this data for you in the SEO impact report. So here we'll scroll down to Performance and Core Web Vitals again. Here I'm looking at data drawn from logs. This is because I'm going to want to take a look at bot behavior in a second, but if you don't have logs, or if you want, you can switch to Google Analytics or another analytics account like this. You should see about the same trends and the same information. We're going to look at the logs. So here there's no clear relationship between total blocking time and the number of organic visits that my pages receive. It's pretty flat across the board. And the same is essentially true of whether the page receives visits or not. So let's look at the bots. There's no significant difference here as well between total blocking time scores in terms of whether a page is crawled or not. And it looks like there's a drop here between good and needs improvement as far as how frequently pages are crawled, but this difference is not actually significant. However, in scrolling by, it did look like I saw something with the content layout shift. So let's go take a look. The site performs really well on this metric, if you remember. So the poor group here shouldn't contain that many URLs. I just want to make sure that if there is an important difference here, that the poor URLs are not priority pages that I really need to rank well. So by clicking here, I can see the articles that are scoring so low on content layout shift. And it looks like there's only one. It seems to be a product update. So depending on my product marketing strategy, I might want to take a closer look at this particular page if I really need it to rank well. So now you're ready to analyze your Core Web Vitals in Oncrawl. And just one final comment. Keep in mind that at the time we recorded this update hasn't fully rolled out yet. You may want to come back and look at changes in how your Core Web Vitals affect your site in, say, a month or two. But more on that next time. It's your turn to see what insights you can uncover on your site. Thanks for joining me.